Alright, so the first thing, as always, safety. Safety, safety, safety. You can never have too much safety. So I'm just going to quickly walk over a basic safety checklist. These are things you do before you even leave your house, before you leave wherever you're at, before you even get to where the location is for flying. So the preparation part, basically you want to make sure beforehand through an FAA app such as AirMap, or Before You Fly, which is the official FAA app currently. You're going to want to make sure that wherever you're going to fly is a safe zone, meaning it's probably it's a declassified or an unclassified airspace, such as airspace G. There's various levels, but generally that means it's under 400 feet, and there's not an airport within 5 miles, as Calvin touched on. After that, you're going to want to check weather. It's very important. Today it's pouring outside. This morning it looked like who knows what was going to happen. So you're going to want to check weather, because these drones, generally speaking, they don't like water, they don't like disruption, they don't like to crash, they don't like any of that stuff. So always check your weather. And weather includes wind conditions. Most people forget about that part. It's sunny outside, but it could be windy. There could be a very standard wind, but there could be gusts. Gusts are the most important part of wind. The drone itself can probably handle a higher, like an average or a consistent wind speed, but it's the gusts that throw it off. So you're going to want to check all aspects of weather. A very good app that I currently use is UAV Forecast. It's on the Android store and the iOS store, or the App Store. It's free, and it'll basically tell you everything weather related you need to know about where you're currently at. It'll even give you information such as a wind profile, so it'll tell you how fast the wind is at various elevations, such as 50 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet, 400 feet. It'll even go higher than that, and obviously without a Part 107 certified license, you're not supposed to go over that height. But it will break it down for you from 0 to about 400 feet. Next thing you want to do is make sure that the drone itself, most of these drones, you got the Air over here, there's the Mini over here, and you got an Autel. They all have software that runs them. So you want to make sure that all the software is up to date. It's actually referred to as firmware. So the controller, such as this Autel controller, is going to have its own firmware. And the drone itself is going to have firmware. Now I know on the DJIs they have battery firmware. I'm not sure about this Autel, but I'm sure it has a battery firmware as well. So you're going to want to make sure all the updates are done before you fly. The next thing you want to do is generally plan out where you're going to fly. Generally speaking, you go to a location, let's say it's a park, and you can see everything in front of you. But let's say you go somewhere like the beach, or maybe you're in the mountains or something like that. You're going to want to kind of scope out beforehand what you're flying around. Because there are times where the drone may or may not, kind of disappear behind a tree or a building or something. And you're going to want to know your general surroundings so you can bring it back without crashing it, or worst case scenario, losing it. And then, basically you just want to make sure that you want to know your surroundings before you take off. After the preparation, before you even get there. So once you get there, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure everything's okay. You want to make sure that your batteries are charged. Generally speaking, you don't want to take off with a battery that is not even fully charged. You're going to want it to be 100% charged. Just because you want to make sure that you know your flight time, and you're going to make sure that I have 30 minutes or whatever your battery should last. If you go in with a 50% battery, you might forget that, and you're going to fly 15 minutes and then it runs out of battery and might not come home. The next thing you want to check, and I guess this is actually before you leave as well, you want to make sure you have all your gear. You want to make sure you have your batteries, you want to make sure you have your controller, you want to make sure you have your antennas, propellers, I can't tell you how many times I've been out flying and I broke a propeller, and then that was the end of my day because I forgot to bring extra propellers. So you're going to make sure you have all your stuff with you. You want backup stuff. So for instance, I always carry a battery backup with me. That battery backup can charge the controller. It wouldn't be able to charge this drone, but some of the DJIs can actually charge from it, and various smaller drones. But you're going to want to make sure you bring enough equipment that if whatever you see here were to break or disappear, you could continue flying. The other thing that I always forget is an SD card. I like to capture footage, video, photos, various for wherever I'm flying. I have taken off at least 20 or 30 times without an SD card, and then I get my drone to where I want it to be, and I get it all set up, and then I realize I don't have an SD card in there, so I can't capture any of the photos or video. The other thing you want to make sure is, generally speaking, you want to try to have a hard connection. Most of these drones operate on Wi-Fi. The controller connects to the drone, and then you generally use a phone to see the video feed. Now, the phones on most of these higher end drones, such as the Air over here, the Sawtelle, they have a hard cable that plugs into the controller and plugs directly into a phone. Generally speaking, you want to do that if you can. It'll give you better range, it'll give you better reliability, and you're not worried about, and in this instance, it'll actually charge your phone while you're flying, so you don't have to worry about your phone dying. After that, once you check all that, you're going to get out to the field or wherever your location is, and then you're going to kind of do some of these checks again. You're just going to make sure that everything looks okay. You're going to make sure the batteries are charged, you're going to make sure the controller's charged, and then you're going to turn it on and make sure everything connects properly. And for most of these drones, the main hub or the main connection point is the controller. And generally speaking, in most radio control, the controller or the transmitter, generally referred to as a transmitter, this is the most important item. You want to make sure that this thing is working and functioning 100%. Because if this thing were not controlling this, it's a computer, computers do random things, this thing could operate on its own. So you want to make sure that this is connected to it, so that way you're ensuring that you are controlling it, in fact, and no one else is, or it's just acting rogue and doing whatever it wants to. Most of the newer drones have software and firmware built in that are not going to allow that. Without it seeing this controller, it shouldn't take off. But that means it won't. Generally speaking, you just want to avoid any issues. The next thing you want to do, and I'm sure that McKinley and Alex touched on most of this, you're going to want to prep your drone. You want to make sure all the arms are folded out. You want to make sure your propellers are on safely. You want to make sure the battery's on securely. You're going to want to make sure that this is powered up. And just make sure you're going to turn all this on in a certain order, which is, generally speaking, transmitter first, then the drone, and then any other accessories you have. So in this case, you could use a phone to view the live feed. The phone can come on anytime after the transmitter. And speaking about transmitting the live video feed, this particular drone actually has what they call a live deck. This live deck will receive through this RF antenna. I believe it's 2.4 gigahertz, I'm not positive, but this will receive a live feed from the drone. So anywhere this drone is flying and operating, or not even flying, just operating on, whatever video this thing is seeing will be transmitted to here. And if you look closely on the front of it, there are certain ports that you can plug into, such as HDMI, that's the easiest. The HDMI will plug into a TV or a monitor or a projector, anything of that type. And in essence, it will transmit whatever this feed is seeing from the drone to this dock out to your TV or monitor. So far, this thing, it basically allows the a team, someone other than the pilot, to view what the pilot is seeing. Before something like this, with my older drones, for instance, I can't tell you how many times people come up to me and they're like, what are you seeing? What are you doing? And it's like, hey, no, quit touching this because I have to fly it. I have to see what I'm doing because it's more important that my drone stays in the air and stays away from people and things like that. So this allows other people to view what you are exactly seeing. And up until now, for the most part, you weren't able to do that without either tethering something off of the pilot's controller to another screen, which makes them tethered to that screen, or some sort of third-party app that either A, didn't work, B, didn't work very well, or C, it just didn't work the way you wanted it to. It wasn't capturing high quality or high definition video. It doesn't allow you to do various things like control the drone, for instance. Sometimes when drones go up, especially in like a search and rescue mission, the pilot itself is only worried about keeping the drone safe and in the air. And then you have a second party, or an observer, or someone else, that is actually controlling the camera. And they're the ones focusing on the video feed and manipulating the camera to view what they're looking for. So it's not uncommon for, what I would call a mission or a more advanced mission to have two pilots on one of these, and then a third person that's witnessing or an observer. So once you get to the field, you're basically going to want to make sure that everything works. The propellers are on securely. The drone's unfolded, the batteries are charged, controller's charged, all that stuff. And at that point, again, if you've already done some research on, say, Google Maps, I do this all the time. If I'm going to go fly somewhere I've never been before, I'll go look on Google Maps and put it on the satellite view, and just look at what I'm looking at. So visually inspect where you are before you fly, before you take off. And then, of course, people. People are unpredictable. Dogs, animals are the worst. I can't tell you, there's been a couple times where I'm flying and I still have an observer, but a dog randomly and not on a leash runs up to me and starts jumping on me while I'm flying. And you have to be able to, to deal with that situation. So you're going to want to make sure that you're in an area where either people or animals can't get to you, or you're at least in an area where you understand your surroundings. So then basically after that point, it's really just making sure that everything has a solid connection. Generally speaking, most of these remotes, the Air, the Mini, this Autel, they will tell you some sort of link strength. It's generally called an RC link or an RSSI link. It'll tell you how strong of a connection the controller itself, which is the most important, or the transmitter, how strong of a link it has to the drone itself. Sometimes you'll get to a place where there's interference, magnetic interference, just other radio interference. I've had times where I had a friend with a phone sitting next to me, and for some reason it interfered. Once he turned his phone off, I had no problems. So you're also going to want to scout or view the radio interference. After that, you're just going to want to, you always want to practice safety. I cannot stress safety enough. I actually have some cuts on my finger from a drone from a couple days ago. There has been times where the drone itself will do something erratic or something that you can't predict. And the three best suggestions or things that you can take away from flying a drone in safety would be, number one, you always want to have someone's eyes on the drone. Whether it's you or your observer, your co-pilot. someone needs to have eyes on the drone. The drones, these things are fast, they can disappear quickly. If someone doesn't have eyes on it and eyes on your surroundings, things like people and dogs can run up to you, the drone can just disappear without you even knowing. The other thing would be, you gotta be kind of confident, so start small. You know, something like our little course that we have set out here, you wanna start small. Don't get a drone for Christmas and just go out and say, how far can I go? How high can I go? You know, don't do any of that stuff, because you will probably lose a drone, or worst case scenario, hurt someone or something. But you need to work up slowly to this confidence, because ultimately if something were to happen, you need to be able to collect yourself, be calm, and understand the situation. You need to know your surroundings, which is all this preparation. You need to know your surroundings, you need to be comfortable with your drone, so that way if something were to happen, such as a radio link gets disconnected or lost, you need to be able to understand what should happen. In theory, such as this hotel, it should have a home position. The home position, generally speaking, is set upon or right before takeoff. So if I were to turn this on now and put it on the ground, it would attempt to find a home location. Right now we are inside of a building. It probably won't be able to calculate or find a home position because it relies on GPS. GPS generally doesn't work indoors. So if I were to take off right here, this drone might not know where home is. So you would like to, before you take off, make sure that it